So today we're going to do our class from one of the most iconic locations at the University of Minnesota campus here in the Twin Cities. We actually got up early, 7 a.m. to record this so we could do it in peace and quiet. For those of you that have walked by here, you understand that this is never a quiet location. But here we got here bright and early, so hopefully we can get through. Today we're going to talk about one of the important steps. It's called the decision-making process. So the first couple lessons we've spent our time sort of getting to know kind of marketing. But today we're going to take a big deep dive into the actual process of what we're looking for. And then one of the themes we keep kind of going through is who is our customer and what are they doing, and trying to better understand them. So by the end of today's lesson, you will be able to distinguish between an emotional decision, cognitive decision, high involvement decision, and a low involvement decision. The first step we're going to go through is based on three things. So anytime you're talking about your customers and your decision-making process, you want to think there's three important things or three important factors that you have to take into account into every single decision. And the reason these are so important is because even though you have the same product, it can always change. So those first three things are: what is the product, what is the context, and who are the people involved. So for today's theme, we're going to focus on basically moving to school. We're gonna look at two specific things. The first one, kind of the summer before college, like, oh, I graduated high school, I'm really excited, but I also know nothing. Comparing that to the second year, which is, you know, you've got some experience right now, you're going into second year of college, and how these basic decisions have changed from one year to the next year. And that's gonna be the context. So the product is actually kind of, it's multiple things. It's sort of moving to school. And the second thing is going to be the context. And the third thing are the people involved. So we are talking about the product. The context, as I said, is your first year versus your second year. And thinking about how even though the decisions themselves are basically exactly the same. Where do I live? How do I furnish this place? Who am I going to live with? What class I'm going to pick? It's the same. But it's completely different because of what you've learned and the experience you've gained from year to year. And then the last thing is the people involved. So if you think about the first year, the people that were involved, mom, dad, maybe your siblings, maybe an aunt or uncle, potentially some high school friends. But really, everyone's pretty ignorant together in this whole situation. No one really has a strong grasp of what's happening. Comparing that to your second year when you're looking for places, now you're focusing on yourself, your own experience, and potentially your future roommates going into the next year that you have chosen instead of a random one. Another thing to think about is the goals of these people. Even though the decision you're making your first year is with your parents have very different goals than what you yourself will have in the second year. Think about yourself, or even myself. I think like the goal of me, the most important thing for my daughter is going to be safety and convenience, no question. But for you, you're going in your second year, now you're thinking, you know, I'm more confident, I don't need to worry about safety as much, or maybe my parents like over-exaggerated types of things. I'm thinking, where's it gonna be fun, or what's like my major, where's my friends, or whatever those things are. The types of things that you take into consideration have drastically changed. So in today's lesson, we're gonna talk about 4 key vocabulary words. These words are emotional, cognitive, high involvement, low involvement. As I said, we're going to continue on the school theme, and we're going to emphasize each one, and we're going to kind of break it down. But one thing I want you to always be thinking about is, even though I'm giving these examples, some of you will look at these examples and think, well, for me, it was totally different. And that's why marketing is so complicated. And that's why the huge percentage of new products fail year after year, because understanding your actual customers and the decision-making process that they go through is so complicated because, as I said, the context changes. Even though it's the same decision, it changes. The people involved change the decision-making process. And the product itself changes depending on the decision-making process. The first one we're going to talk about is emotional buy. To me, an emotional buy is kind of like when someone says, well, what are you going to get? And you say, well, I'll know it when I see it. Or when I get the feeling of that product matches me, I'm going to get it. These are the kind of products that places like Target will put out in the middle of the aisles. They'll put out so that people can see it, so it's easy to see, because they know that, like, oh, that's me, I need to have that. Or web pages will flash on the front page so that when you see, you're like, oh, that's who I am. And some good examples of emotional buys might be the pillows of your dorm room, or maybe even your apartment. The lights, if you're gonna have lights in the ceiling or lights around, maybe you're just walking through Target and you see them, like, oh, I need to have those lights, those are gonna be amazing. Or it could even be a poster, right? You go through Hobby Lobby, or maybe they have an event that's at your school outside the dorms before the school year starts, and you're walking and you see that and you're like, oh, that poster is totally me. It represents my personality. So those are emotional buys. The second one is cognitive buys. Cognitive buys, thinking about the process. Right? You're putting some time, you're putting some energy into it, and you're actually researching it. So brands don't often care as much where it's located in the store or in the website, because they know that you're going to search it out and you're going to find it because you've already put so much energy into it. And brands will do things like talk about comparing and contrasting their product to their competitors because they know that you're researching it. They might even say, hey, go check out this influencer to read reviews to learn more about our products. Some examples of this for school would be like choosing your major. Schools don't really advertise their majors because they know that you're going to be researching the different majors and you're going to find out where it is. They don't need to put that on the front page. Another example could be something like Greek life or clubs. You might put some time and energy your first year, your second year. Should I join a sorority? Should I join a fraternity? Should I be in this kind of club? Should I be in that kind of club? Should I be involved with athletics? Because you're going to research these different things. So they're going to talk about, hey, if you join our fraternity, it's different than other ones because of these things. If you join our club, it might get you some sort of opportunities. The next one's high involvement. High involvement are decisions where you put a lot of time and energy into this process. One way to think about it is, you know as a person making this decision that if I choose the wrong answer or the wrong path, it could potentially have negative consequences down the road. And a great example for me of this being in college is student loans, scholarships, financial aid. How are you going to pay for your school? How are you going to pay for that tuition? Think about these stresses that appear in your life as you go to college. You put so much energy in there because you know that potentially if you do it right, you can cut a ton of money, thousands and thousands of dollars off of your tuition every year. So when you graduate, you have less to pay. But if you do it wrong, potentially these could build up to become huge like burdens for the rest of your life that go into your 20s, 30s, and maybe even 40s. So you put a lot of time and energy into this to try to get the best results as possible. The last one is low involvement. Low involvement are purchases where your decision-making process happens like this. It's just basically done. It's like buying gum, buying your everyday groceries. Nothing's really changing. You're not putting any thought into it. You just pick it up, boom, 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 I need this, I need that. It's done. I have an interesting example for this one, and this is where I think about how your first, maybe even your second year of college, choosing the classes to take is a high involvement process. You don't want to make a mistake. You're putting all this research in there to find the right classes. But once you have your major chosen and you're sort of given your template, which classes you choose is basically given to you. And now this has become low involvement because you know to graduate, you have to complete this many courses at this time and this rate. And generally they even tell you which classes to take certain years, and you just cruise right through it. And now it becomes low involvement. So again, there's an example where the product is basically the same, choosing your classes, but the context changes and now it becomes from high involvement to low involvement. The last thing is, as you can notice going through these, I'm listing these different decisions, you're thinking to yourself, well, it wasn't like that for me. Why is it like that? Why is Corey giving this example? I'm a little confused. But ultimately what it means is that it's not that easy. Like, that's why marketing is so complicated, because we all have different situations. But then you even get products where it's 2 in 1. One of the things that you should be thinking about when we were going through today's lesson was that everything can be done in multiple ways and nothing is really clear cut. And that's the problem with marketing. And so the first one, if you see like cognitive matches high involvement, those are like what we call utilitarian products, which would be like your microwave or your refrigerator for your dormitory. The next one though, or if you say it's cognitive and emotional, these are things like your prom dress. If you think back to when you went to prom in high school, think how huge that was. You have all these people involved, your mom, your dad, your friends. You're trying to find the perfect dress that matches exactly what you look like. You want to have the prettiest dress, you want to have the most popular dress, but you also don't want to have a dress that anyone else has. And so you're trying to check all these boxes to be just perfect. That's a high involvement, emotional purchase. But now you think about a low involvement cognitive purchase, maybe you do a little bit of thinking, but it's just kind of quick with thinking. Like, to me, I think bedding, shower shoes, toiletries, I'm not gonna put much thought into that. The last one is low involvement, emotional. Again, we kind of talked about this earlier, but I think of like decorations for your apartment, decorations for your dormitory. These are things you just kind of grab and pick up as you go shopping to try to make things look better. As we come to an end of our lesson, the most important thing that you should take away from this is that everything comes down to market research. If you know who your customers are, if you understand their decision-making process, if you understand the context that they're in, the people that they're involved with while they're making this decision, you can start to design campaigns and products that will meet the needs of your customers. And if you can meet the needs of your customers, they're going to be happy, they're going to become loyal, and they're going to continually buy your products. That's why market research is so valuable to the success of your company. You don't want to be guessing. You always want to have as much market research as possible. You want as much data and information about your customers as you can possibly get so that you can make them happy. Because as you start to get more and more data, you'll start to notice that patterns emerge and you can see how your customers buy your products, and that's how you can develop your campaign. So by the end of today's class, you should be able to distinguish between an emotional decision, cognitive decision, high involvement decision, and a low involvement decision. Thank you so much for all your time and energy. I appreciate everyone coming to these classes. We're still just kind of in the beginning, but thank you so much. Take care, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.